Okay, another episode of Browns Bites. Difficult to fathom a more deflating game to see the Browns play at, considering how well they played in the first one. They lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers 26-22, and the biggest reason for it being deflating is also the reason a whole lot of people almost didn't even care about the result of the game, which was the injury to Nick Chubb. Just an awful situation, to the point where Acrisure Stadium, at least reportedly, was cheering him going on the cart and everything else. So it was just awful. And, it was symbolic of the way the game was played. Ugly, dirty, just not much fun, any of it, and took forever.
Hi, Pete. I have a lot to say today. I had a really hard time getting into the game after the Nick Chubb injury. I think as most people did. It felt long. It felt like it was never going to end. It was gross. It was bizarre. It felt like we were out physicaled for the most part. Like it felt like we couldn't get to halftime soon enough after that injury. And it felt like halftime took forever to get to. Obviously, the Nick Chubb loss is devastating for a lot of different reasons. He is truly the heartbeat of this team, whether he should have been or not. He definitely kind of had that steady rhythm that kept the Browns in football games day in and day out. That's who he was. His mentality, his heart, just everything about him permeated what this football team stands for. Now, what I will say is Nick Chubb being out of the game so early on exposed a lot about this Browns team, particularly the offense, and what we have to work with. And I tweeted about this last night. The difficult thing to take away from this game was you lose your star running back. Sure, that's a big loss. But you still are supposed to have a top quarterback on your football team. So even if you lose your running back, you would think if he is everything he is supposed to be, Deshaun Watson should have given them a reason to win that football game. The defense 100% kept them in the football game. One of the only reasons the Browns were in the football game. And the weird thing about all of this is the Browns were leading going into the fourth quarter, and it felt like we were down by 20. It was just a bizarre experience overall. I need you to help rail me in, Pete. I lost Contain 2 weeks ago. I wish I never would have left Contain because all of my fears have come true.
Let's take this piece by piece. First, the Browns offense was bad. I don't think there's any getting away from that. What frustrates me, and I'll touch on this briefly, and we'll come back to it, is the Browns had a good offensive game plan going into the game. They looked good initially. Now, obviously, the interception for pick six was ridiculous, but they came right back and they moved the ball right down the field. When the Browns got Deshaun Watson and going into this offseason, it was still, even with Nick Chubb, it was supposed to be Deshaun Watson's team. Nick Chubb was supposed to be just one more reason for them to be good. I mean, there was talk that this was going to be Nick Chubb's last season for reasons that had nothing to do with injury or anything else, that it was just going to be time to sort of move on. There were financial implications. There were questions of, how long could he continue playing, even though the Browns never got into that. And frankly, were pretty openly committed to him being here through the rest of his contract, which goes into 2024. But they were supposed to have a quarterback who elevates the talent around him. That is ultimately what matters about being a franchise quarterback. And to this point, Deshaun Watson has made the offense worse. I think it's the opposite. I think he's shrinking the offense. And I know there are people who are going to be angry about play calling. And certainly there are plays that I found a little curious, like with Deshaun Watson having called runs at various points just seemed bizarre given what the Steelers were able to do. But at the same time, Deshaun Watson was bad and made good calls bad, made average calls terrible and made bad, and made good play calls, ultimately unimportant. It all starts with him. And, one of the things I've sort of heard, as you go as well, it's, the Browns should fire Kevin Stefanski and blah, blah, blah. Well, they lost the game. So of course that's where we're at. The reality is that Kevin Stefanski's play calling and all those other things that people want to criticize are immaterial at this point. If Deshaun Watson's not good, he's not going to be here. I mean, that's it.
None of it matters. Well, yeah. I mean, honestly, like none of it matters.
Right. Which is
none of this matters. I mean, Pete, just to talk about the play calling in general, because I just think you have a deeper understanding than most people do. And especially me, I find it baffling that Deshaun looks like this in this offense with all of these weapons, the decision making, the errant throws. I mean, I'm like, are we now running? Like, does he think the football field has widened? Like, there were throws that were well off course from being anywhere close to a receiver. I thought one of his best attributes was his ability to escape and extend plays. And now I know one of his biggest downfalls was he oftentimes found himself running into sacks and getting sacked. He's a highly sacked quarterback. But last night, it felt like nothing was a benefit. He looked exactly like he looked last year against the Steelers at the end of the season. Mm-hmm. He looked like he was seeing ghosts. He looked highly uncomfortable the entire game. I honestly also feel like it looked like watching Baker Mayfield play against the Steelers in some of those games where it looked the same way. I mean, even the first play of the game, the interception, tipped ball, like ran back for a touchdown. Like we've seen that film before. Mm-hmm. We've done this. Like it all just felt unsettling.
Yeah. So it did feel like he was playing on a Canadian field, which is 55 yards wide as opposed to 53 and a third. It was bizarre because in the post game, he was talking about like, well, I got to get the ball out quickly. Like that was apparent before you set on the field. And that's what they did at the beginning of the game, which is why it was so irritating. The ball was coming out. That it had the Steelers at a genuine disadvantage. You knew you were going to have to deal with TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. You knew you had a rookie right tackle and Jedrick Wills at left tackle. And Jedrick Wills, again, he's not good, but like the sack that he gave up, he had no chance. And it was just the situation at that point. The Steelers got to a point where they're basically like, you're not even throwing it at this point, or he's not throwing it anywhere near anything. We're going to just pin our ears back, send as many guys to the line of scrimmage. We're going to hit the run on our way to just hitting him. And in that particular moment, Alex Highsmith got such a great jump off the ball that literally all Jedrick Wills did was turn around and run backwards. And he still wasn't fast enough to get there. It was preposterous how ridiculous it was. But that's the thing. Like the one thing you couldn't do against this team, just hold on to the ball, got worse as the game went on. And yes, there were a couple times where it's sort of like, okay, it sort of worked out here, but the juice was never worth the squeeze, ever. It was always trying to make a miraculous play out of a bad play. And it happened maybe 2 or 3 times, but like the rest was just bad, which included 2 face mask penalties. I've never seen that before. It's rare to have an offensive player get called for 1. He managed to get 2, and passes were, as you mentioned, just off, completely off. The number of times that receivers were trying to toe tap at the sideline and would have been good from 55 yards was troubling. They didn't work the middle of the field very well. And there's nowhere to hide at this point. Like we chalked up the 6 games at the end of the year going, okay, Rust, this is frustrating. And yeah, you had the nice moment against Washington. Maybe this is sort of, preview of things to come, and did some okay things against the Bengals. And then last week it was, well, the weather was ridiculous. And it's not untrue. It was ridiculous. All that momentum, everything going your way and the Steelers were not good.
No. That's frustrating. That's the frustrating thing about it. The Steelers offense was pathetic. They were willing the Browns to go win the football game. We couldn't get We couldn't even get average quarterback play. All we needed was average quarterback play. Average play. Solid decision.
I would posit that Jacoby Brissett wins that game.
I would say that a lot of other quarterbacks won that game. I mean, and I'm really trying hard not to compare the week 1 performance of the 49ers against the Steelers and how they 100% just dominated that game. And I know like Kyle Shanahan's amazing. Christian McCaffrey is amazing. They have really good playmakers. Their defense is really good. We are not the 49ers, clearly, not even close to that. However, when you look at the defense, like our defense did what they needed to do. I am shocked that we couldn't get anything going on offense or do anything that the 49ers did to make an impact. I mean, I am flabbergasted, Pete. Like I'm really having a hard time with this. I mean, is Brock Purdy like an elite quarterback? Is that the reality?
No, but the quarterback that came into mind, and I wrote it last night, was Zach Wilson. I mean, that's what Deshaun Watson looked like to me in that game.
Yes,
Zach Wilson, where you are a team where you're just praying your quarterback is average enough not to kill you, that you can win the game. And in this case, that would have been enough. And you didn't get that. You got a guy who did more harm. In fact, Kenny Pickett stunk, but he just did less to hurt his team than Deshaun Watson did, which was just, that was the game that Deshaun Watson, just killed his team. The Steelers scored 14 points off the offense. They only scored 12 against the Browns defense. And the Browns defense has 2 plays that they wish they had back, and that would have been 6. But it was just horrendously bad on all fronts. Like I said, and you mentioned the physicality. I think the Browns defense won the line of scrimmage quite a bit throughout the game, but the Browns offense, I was amazed at how poorly they looked at times. They had a really difficult time. Now, some of that late in the game, again, it became the nature of the situation where the Steelers were just launching guys at the line of scrimmage because they had no fear that Deshaun Watson was going to beat them with his arm. And a lot of it would have just been dumping the ball off and letting guys run, which is honestly would set up Kenny Pickett's 1 touchdown pass. And he wouldn't do it. He just would not get rid of the ball. So now we're in a situation where you're sitting here going, you have to fight with your worst fear, which is the Browns gave up 7 draft picks and $230 million for a guy who can't play. And there's no where to go from there. You have, why I think the Zach Wilson comparison sort of apt is like the Jets don't have anywhere to go. They have to sort of make this work. That's where the Browns are. They can't like bench him. Like that would be waving the white flag and just confirm everything. That would immediately just be 15 weeks of, okay, we're waiting to just flush everybody out of this thing and move on to the next regime or whatever that looks like. So that's where we're at, which Deshaun Watson cannot be this bad at football, or everything that was being built to this point is largely a waste. And, and we've wasted the prime of Nick Chubb, the prime of Myles Garrett, that whole rant. You could at least up to this point have argued they were building to something. Based on last night, they have a spectacular defense and nothing to show for it.
Well, that's the other extremely frustrating piece about all of this is we were clamoring for a really solid defense the last couple of years and under Baker Mayfield's regime, and we didn't have it. Now we have it. It looks like the defense it's not an illusion. It's solid. I know there's some injuries we have to keep our eye on, but for the most part, they held up really well. They did what they needed to do. And now the question mark on a complete flip side from where we were a year ago is the offense. And they're not. They're gonna stick with Deshaun Watson. I don't know why everyone is thinking that this is gonna go any type of different way. DTR is not gonna come in and play. You're not going to give up all of this value and pay this amount of money and just move on from him. That's actually not an option. That's not an option, Pete. So we're going to have to stick it out and see how things go. I mean, that's where we're at right now.
The only way Deshaun Watson's not going to be playing is if he gets hurt. And honestly,
which is plausible based on how much he freaking runs and continues to take hits that aren't needed.
Yes. And that's the other thing. Like, there were a couple of times where like he made a positive run and then just took a hit for no reason.
Yes, like just run out of bounds. There are multiple times where he had gotten the first down and then just stayed. I'm like, no, just run out of bounds. Run out of bounds. So I have to tell you, Pete, this whole game, first of all, I'm sick. So I apologize for sounding a little bit horsey. I was sick all day yesterday. All I was looking forward to was watching this football game, the anticipation. I wanted some drama-free football in my life because I had drama situation with my kid and just not feeling well all day. So I literally tweeted that. And then that sequence of events happened in the first quarter where like the ball, it was like hot potato in football. And then the Nick Chubb injury. So I feel like part of this is just me asking the universe for just like a normal football game, that I somehow jinxed this whole thing and situation. So anyway, I was hate watching the rest of the game because I was so mad. And everybody in my family went to bed except my mom. My husband went to bed. I made my kids go to bed after the first quarter. They would have stayed up. And my friend group, like text messages went silent. So I had to laugh because I can watch the game by myself, but I also like need to vent openly with someone. So I had you, voice of reason, and I had my mom, the ultimate optimist. And I just have to tell you, I had to laugh because the Browns turned the ball over when TJ Watt ran it back for the touchdown. When was that? Fourth quarter?
Mm-hmm.
We get the ball back. My mom texts me and she goes, "We're getting ready for a game-winning drive." And I was like, I love how in our minds we think that the Browns have any chance of winning this football game. And by the way, they did actually. They had a couple of chances at winning the football game at that point. When it was so hard for the team, the offense specifically, to feel like they could actually get first downs. I mean, this is something that has been consistent over the last few years. I feel like it's so hard for us, Pete, to gain positive yardage. I don't know why that is. I want it to look easy. It's never looked easy. It has not looked easy. Not even, I mean, maybe 2020 looked easy in a way. There was a moment in time, but that was a snapshot now at this point. We've got a lot of Kevin Stefanski under our belt and obviously a lot of different quarterback play, but nothing feels easy.
It comes down to the quarterback, and so much in this particular game. The other part that never helped was special teams.
Yikes. Yeah, we were constantly pinned back all game.
Yeah, I mean, hidden yardage was massive. Donovan Peoples-Jones misjudged a couple punts, and like one of them lost 25 yards of real estate, which, to your point about first downs, that's 2.5 of them that they couldn't afford to give up. And that's the thing, like at times in this game, the Browns went right down the field and then would run into trouble and get, stop and have to kick a field goal or whatever. But yeah, it was just agonizing. And obviously when they had Nick Chubb, he was able to sort of stabilize a little bit. I think if you're trying to look for just an understanding of just how special it is, look at the running game before he went out. And obviously there's some element of potential emotion and all those other things. It was so easy for him early in the game. Then they go with Jerome Ford, and Jerome Ford, I give him a ton of credit for coming in and making plays, but like the two biggest plays he had were broken plays, essentially. The 69-yard run, he had to run all the way back around, and he's got great speed and explosion, all these other things, and he was able to make that play, but like that is definitely not what the play was supposed to do. And then he had that a play that looked like it was dead in the backfield that he was able to scoop up the left sideline for like a first down. But other than that, it was difficult. It just, those things were problematic. And that part of the, you ask why doesn't it look easy, or why, Why can't we get there? Some of this is just not taking the plays that are there. And again, we come to the quarterback, and there were times where it almost seemed like the ball was snapped. He was immediately dodging pressure. Now, some of that's on the offensive line, but some of that's also because he's getting ready to immediately evacuate as opposed to potentially get the ball out to one of his receivers that's there. And the Browns ran a number of plays, particularly early in the game, but throughout, where he had the ability to just get rid of the ball and complete a pass or whatever, and then let somebody else run for a bit and see what happens. And he wasn't trusting those. He kept trying to extend the play to the point where he thought some hero play was going to open up. And there were a couple, he made some great throws to Amari Cooper and one to Elijah Moore. But more often than not, it was all this energy to get very little. And that's the stuff that it's infuriating. And it was disjointed. It was all discombobulated between the protection and the quarterback. But that's the thing. That's how important that position is, that it needs to be able to lift everybody else up. And at no point did that happen. In fact, it looked like he was drowning through most of the game. And I mean, it's a tough way to operate. And it's a tough way to look at this team after all the offseason and everything else. And this is what you're sort of looking with. It's bizarre because the Steelers are in the exact same boat. Mike Tomlin is complaining about his offense, which was genuinely awful. And the difference is that Kenny Pickett's is a first-round quarterback in his second year. And if he stinks, they can sort of move on and go away from it. The Browns can't with Deshaun Watson. He has to figure this out if they're going to have a season, and they need him to be good. Nick Chubb going down is a hardship. There's no getting around that. It genuinely is a huge loss for them. But Nick Chubb or not, this team should be good enough to compete for a playoff spot. And it all comes down to whether the quarterback is anything at this point. And if he's not, then the rest of this is almost a waste. So, and that's my take on this is the Browns don't have a quarterback right now. Now, I'm hoping I'm overreacting and that he's going to come out next week against the Tennessee Titans and play much better. But based on what I saw in this game, I have little reason to believe in that. So, I mean, I'm looking. I think everybody in that building is wish tomorrow was Sunday so they could get there and play again. But he was bad. Special teams were bad. Defense, save for 2 plays, was spectacular and almost enough. This is a testament to what defense can do for you. If you play good defense, you've got a shot. And the Browns had every shot, and they couldn't make it. They couldn't get it done.
Yeah, I think Nick Chubb definitely covered up a lot of maybe wounds that this team had, and now they've been exposed. Band-Aids have been ripped off. They're exposed. We're in week 3. We're going into week 3. Deshaun Watson has time to figure this out. I don't know that I feel confident after what we watched on Monday night moving forward with him, but at the end of the day, he's still the guy, and this team is going to need that in order to move forward. Yeah, the defense is going to give us a chance in every game, and that's all that we can ask for at this point. I don't know, Pete. I felt like the reaction of last night's performance, people were like, the season's over. The performance plus the Nick Chubb injury. And I know that it's really easy to think that way and have that mindset, but my gosh, we have what? How many games are left? 14?
15 games. 15 games.
Okay, 15 more games left. I can't count. 15 more games left. It's a long season. I mean, we witnessed how injury is going to happen. It just happened to our team like that. There's going to be things that happen the rest of the year at this NFL season, and you just never know. And quite frankly, the Bengals are 0-2 right now. I understand we want to be doom and gloom. We are 1-1. It truly isn't the end of the world. And if nothing else, last night's game has shown that the AFC North is still up for grabs. The Steelers, yeah, they have a solid defense. Their offense, it's not enough. Right now, the Browns isn't either. The Ravens are the team to beat. Who would have guessed that? So to me, that's what you have to go off of. And look, you're going to face the Ravens here shortly. So you're going to be able to evaluate once again how you stack up in your own division. And for me, that's where, in my opinion, this team needs to focus.
Right. Like, for starters, the Tennessee Titans aren't going to feel bad for the Browns. They just aren't. They don't care.
The Steelers didn't last night. Sure,
Yeah.
it was great that the fans clapped and cheered for Chubb and all this. I'm like, they didn't give a shit that he got injured and got carted off. Like, they continued to dominate.
So to your point, we came into the season and we looked at the schedule and we go, if you can get through the first 5-6 games, 3-3, don't let it get out of control, end up 1-5. You've got a shot at this because the second half of the schedule is easier than the first. And I laid out the scenario where I thought Deshaun Watson could be wildly inconsistent in the early part of the year. I foresaw it being pretty reasonable to think he wasn't going to come back and be 100% of what he was, the last time when he was with the Houston Texans. Obviously this has to be the bottom. This has to be rock bottom for him. But losing Chubb sort of makes that a little more difficult because, he was going to cover up some of that inconsistency. So to your point, if the Browns can muddle through, they can win one of these next two. They're in the bye week, which all of a sudden looks welcome, which is sad. But then they have the ability to sort of ramp up and get going. Now, that requires Watson to get better every week, basically from here on out, and using his 1% better. I would like a few more than 1% this coming week, but just I understand his point, and he's right. Ultimately, he's just got to play better football, and they can rally and they can get to a point where they're okay, stay afloat, and then hopefully find a point in the season where they ramp up and get a rhythm. Again, it was supposed to be Deshaun Watson's team. Now the Chubb injury, demands it. So what is he going to do? How is he going to respond? It's up to him on that front. So we'll see where they go. And the other part of that is, as long as the defense stays healthy, they're going to be good. They had 2 plays where they drive you nuts in that game. 3rd and 10. They dump a ball off to Jalen Warren or whatever his name is, and there are 3 defenders between him and the sticks. Somehow he manages to fight through 11 yards and get a first down. The Browns should have made that tackle. Looked like somebody tried to just blow him up or whatever and missed, and he was able to squeak through. And they, instead of punting, which would have, they punted 7 times, that would have been the 8th. They continued to drive. The very next play, 71-yard touchdown pass to George Pickens on a blown coverage. Whether it certainly looked like Denzel Ward thought he was going to get help, was playing outside leverage, thought safety help was going to be over the top. Grant Delpit was over. The only safety I saw over there was helping out with covering a crosser, and nobody's there. And suddenly George Pickens is off to the races. Other than that, you look at this defense and they played 53 plays, 51 plays were fantastic. And, I don't want to sound like Butch Davis, but that realistically, that 6 points is it. And they rallied and they were able to, we got Jordan Elliott got a stupid penalty and then the Steelers went for 2 and the Browns stopped them. So like you look at that and you go, that's a place for them to start. As long as they can continue to play defense like that, they're going to be in every game. And Deshaun Watson is going to get every opportunity to sort of figure out and prove himself and make this team better, and just trust in his weapons and his teammates. And I think that's going to be the biggest emphasis for him this coming week. It's there, like that's the thing. The Steelers, the Browns can't let the Steelers beat them multiple times. Like they cannot let this loss be a loss next week and a loss next week. Because if that's what happens, then you are going to verge into bad territory and potentially a lost season. And obviously,
I think that's really important, though, Pete. What you just said. This loss of Nick Chubb, it cannot meddle into the next couple of weeks, and that's where I think this team in the past it has sort of felt like a hangover effect, where it could then start snowballing into a problem. We obviously have, I don't know if you want to call it a benefit, but the bye is early. So there is that moment in time where you're going to play 2 more games and then you're going to go into a bye week early. So with the Nick Chubb injury, that's actually probably pretty notable, especially if they do have to find someone to come in at running back and figuring out how this offense is going to look moving forward. To your point, I don't know, Nick Chubb obviously is a featured part of the offense, but it was supposed to be about Deshaun. So, how do they approach the bye week? How do they approach these next couple of games in getting prepared for the bye week? And what is it going to look like moving forward? I mean, there's a long season ahead of us. There truly is.
Yeah. And look, I know people are going to pile up on Kevin Stefanski and stuff, but I do believe the Browns have a good coaching staff, and they do have the people in that building to rally. They unlike the last couple of years, the team was loaded with children. They have adults. They have professionals who can, get through the storm and work it out. The other thing that stands out to me is like, I just crapped on, how Jerome Ford got his yards, but the other part of that is Jerome Ford is talented. Like, they were not good running the ball with him, and he made it work, but clearly there's something there to work with. And that glimpse of what he can do sort of at least helps to understand why the Browns weren't as active trying to find a third running back as we thought they might be. They still have Pierre Strong. Obviously, they're going to sign somebody else. Speculate on whoever you want. I don't care. They're not going to trade for Jonathan Taylor. They're just not. And Nick and
what do we have to trade? Just curious.
Well, that's the thing. You'd be trading potentially your first round pick in 2025 at this point, because you don't have your pick in 2024. And Kareem Hunt is not saving this football team. You can talk yourselves into it, and they can sign him, and he's going to be as mediocre as he ever was. They're not going to replace that element. That's the whole point. And as a result, and this is how the Browns have sort of built themselves anyway. Obviously, Jack Conklin's injury doesn't help on this front, but the Browns were always built to sort of have an offensive line that could make a running back. They now have to go out and prove it far more than they did this past week. But like I said, I think Jerome Ford has talent. I think there's something to work with. And the problem you're running into now is potentially over these, hopefully they can get a win against Tennessee, but the problem you're running into is now you need to make Deshaun Watson has to get a whole lot better, and Jerome Ford has to get a whole lot better or consistent real fast. And you're trying to do these things at the same time. Nick Chubb was always your safety blanket, and he sort of allowed you to sort of muddle through Watson inconsistency. That is gone. That net, so to speak, is no longer under you. So that's where they're at, and they have to sort of figure this out and make it work. But at the end of the day, and I hate, cliche, I'm going to cliche the shit out of this. If I had told you before the season that heading into week 3, the Browns would be 1-1, most people would have been like, okay, fine, I'm good with that. It does not, it absolutely sucks that they were as dominant as they were in the first week and were as bad as they were, at least offensively and special teams, in the second week. But ultimately, they're still at a point where they are 1-1. Obviously, not having Chubb sucks. There's no romancing that into some positive. But they are where we thought they could very well be. Now it's up to them to sort of rally, figure it out, see what this team is made of. I think the Browns have better people in that building, players and coaches, than they've had in past years. And I think they do have the capacity to get that. But it all starts with 4.
Yes, it does.
Now, is this the point? I know you're not really in the mood to spike the football, but this was your one fear. Speaking of which, that reminds me, who's worried about Cade York right now? As you and I talked about,
literally
completely meaningless if the quarterback doesn't work.
Yeah, and I know Dustin missed a field goal last night. Didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything.
Well, I couldn't believe he hit the 55-yarder. I was genuinely amazed at that. But yeah,
same. No, I'm not happy to spike the ball. This was a legitimate fear coming into this season that we just didn't have enough to be confident in Deshaun Watson. Everyone that talked about him was going off of a 2019 Deshaun Watson. That was a long time ago. We went through an entire pandemic, people. So based on what we saw last year in the 6 games, there was obviously weather. He played in some weird weather. We saw what happened last week in week 1. And what I hated about week 1 was because there was so much rain and weather involved, we couldn't evaluate what he was going to be. It didn't look pretty, though. I think if it would have been sunny, it wouldn't have looked pretty, Pete. Hate to say that, but without the rain, I don't know what we would have gotten from him. And I understand the Steelers have a very solid defense, especially when it comes to the defensive line. So that obviously impacted his play quite a bit. It's not so much that as it is just the decision-making. I mean, we saw glimpses. We saw glimpses of some pretty critical throws and him connecting with Amari Cooper a couple of times to get us out of a bind. So there's pockets there. It's just not all coming together at once like we need to see it. I'd like to see him use his legs as a benefit and not to your point of trying to extend a bad play to make another bad play. Things are just not coming together like I would have anticipated it. And right now we haven't seen Deshaun Watson, the Houston Texans version. It's not there.
Yeah. I think going back to what I saw in the Cincinnati Bengals game, I thought if not for weather, Deshaun Watson would have played well. The ball was going to the right guy. The right guy was open. You ran into these issues of the ball just short hopped or whatever because he's throwing that waterlogged cinder block. And I want to believe that's attainable. It's just difficult with what I saw last night. Clearly there's talent in there. Even as bad as he was against the Steelers, there were flashes where you're just like, and I think those flashes were arguably the most frustrating part is right. Because you would get the occasional just great throw. And you would get like these big plays and you'd be like, okay, let's go. And then follow that up with another bad play. The biggest thing, he's got to get the ball out of his hand. He just has to get the ball out of his hands.
Yes.
His legs at this point, as much as you want them to be an asset, they are currently a detriment for him.
Well, that was my other fear that I talked about after the game against the Bengals, that I told you that I was worried about going in, that he was going to take the mindset of being the savior and needing to play like hero ball. And I think we saw some of that last night with him trying to run out of trouble. And he really just got himself into more trouble. So I hope that those are things that get cleaned up. Those are habits that he breaks. We don't need him to be the hero. We truly don't need him to make these miraculous plays. Like, I just want things to be executed, look clean, and for him to play smart. Yeah,
like I think off the top of my head, I can think of one throwaway yesterday. I can think of one.
Yeah.
He just would not get rid of it. So he's got to get rid of the ball. And right now, it's embarrassing to have to phrase it like this, but like I'm hoping he can just play like Jacoby Brissett against the Tennessee Titans. If they get that, I think they win. And like, here's the thing: I think if Jacoby Brissett had the same season last year and had it on the Browns this year, they'd be a playoff team. Again, that would be way more difficult without Chubb. But that's all they need right now. They need him to make the plays he's supposed to make, rather than try to make the plays he wants to make in terms of, like you said, hero ball, because that's what it looks like. He looks like he's trying to make 14-point throws. Like they're in a game where they were winning. He looked like he was trying to throw multiple scores on one play. So it's just, they've got to reel him back quite a bit in terms of just giving him something to do, getting the ball out of his hands, and just letting playmakers do it. If that happens, I think they can get better. And then you can slowly reintegrate some of the other things you want to do. Like, I don't want to see them try to run the option. I don't think it's going to help you right now. I don't.
Can I ask you another question? It felt like the QB sneak has kind of went away in total. Is that something that Deshaun, it's not really in his playbook?
Unclear. I mean, obviously, Kevin Stefanski has always said that he doesn't run plays that the quarterback's not comfortable with.
Okay.
I'm curious to know if that's why we got that 4th and 1 play, which they still converted if
Yeah.
Deshaun
Yeah.
Watson doesn't fumble.
It just was
But yes, it looked like
scary looking.
option. And it was the same thing on that 2-point conversion they converted against the Bengals. I think they got to get away from that for the time being, unless they've got something that's going to, they can execute effectively enough that's going to sort of help alleviate concerns they have at tackle. But ultimately, I even then, I just want the ball out of his hands. I want him to get the ball to his playmakers and let them operate. In that regard, that's ultimately why I think Kenny Pickett was more effective in that game. Because Kenny Pickett, for all the things he did wrong, and there were plenty, the ball, he got rid of it.
He found his playmakers. Yeah, he did.
He either got it to his guys or he got it out of bounds. He didn't just keep trying to make things happen. Yeah. And that's unfortunately. Yeah. So, I'm curious to see where this goes from that and this next week in particular, what changes, because, if Deshaun is ultimately going to insist that this is who he is, I think that could be a real problem. And I think that's going to be an issue where he's going to butt heads with the coaching staff, because I don't think he's anywhere near that point as a player right now. And that's going to be tough to do. So if we come out next week and we see Deshaun Watson is just ping, 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 whether they're completed or not, just getting the ball out, it doesn't have to be just catch, step, throw, but at the top of his drop, the ball's coming out, going where it's supposed to go, or it's not, and it's not being kept hold on to. I think that will be a sign of progress. Even if he does the other thing and it works and they win, I'm still going to sit here thinking, I just want to see him get the ball out of his hands. I don't want him to try to do these things. And I don't want that to be misconstrued as I'm trying to make Deshaun Watson anything other than he is. But I do think he's leaning so hard into this. He's not sort of recognizing what he's doing, or he is. I mean, like I said in the press conference, it seemed like he had awareness to know that he was doing these things, but he kept doing them. So that's where I'm sort of.
Well, that's actually what's a little bit concerning, because is he delusional in that? Sure, you can say that you're aware or that you're doing these things, but he's still doing them. So I'm a little bit concerned about that piece of it. It's like Instagram versus reality, right? He thinks he's this, he's really this.
Mm-hmm. And the other part about the whole Deshaun Watson thing is the Browns made a Faustian bargain to acquire Deshaun Watson. And let's be blunt. No one gives a shit about his personal journey. They want to see him play football and play well. Because if he is a reformed human being and a wonderful person, no one's going to sit here and go, okay, cool, here's your $230 million. Here's the 7 draft picks. Totally worth it. And this is the business the Browns chose, and they made this deal. They don't care. They're not. Nick Chubb, you contrast this. Nick Chubb is sort of everything that was good about football in so much as we know about him. Who really knows? But what we know about him is reputation with teammates, reputation with coaches, reputation with, going back to college and high school and everything else. You never hear a bad word about Nick Chubb. He's, at least what we want to believe, is everything good about team sports, this particular game, and all the merits of football. Deshaun Watson, in his current form, is the opposite. It's a cynical, cold-blooded business, and they need him to play well, and the rest doesn't matter. And the other part that sort of is irritating to me, and I get why he's doing it, and I understand what he wants to accomplish, but it always feels like he's trying to work this redemption arc into this thing. And look, again, I certainly, given what he's been accused of and the things he probably did, I want him to be a better person. But in the situation we're in, no one cares.
No, you're exactly right. It's interesting. Everything that went down last year and everything about the misconduct and the policy. I mean, he's a villain. He really is. In the eyes of the entire NFL fan base, nobody's rooting for him. You have Browns fans not rooting for him. That's the situation that we're in right now. He has to know that. He has to own that. And to your point, Browns fans, it's terrible to say. They just want him to be good at football. They want him to be worth it, because every time that he is not good at football, then everything else about his personal life comes out. Yes. And it's already frustrating enough to deal with the fact that the Browns played like crap and we had to watch that travesty go down last night. And it's a whole other level of suck to then have to deal with everybody attacking us as fans for rooting for a team and a quarterback that has been given the world and we're not seeing any benefit from it, who also is a questionable character. That's the reality of what we're dealing with. And so every single game this year is going to come with that weight of a win is great, because it's not going to be part of the conversation. We're not going to win every game. So as Browns fans, we have to sit here and buckle up and just take the hit after hit after hit about Deshaun Watson, about the football team, about the decisions, about how everything sucks. We suck, poverty franchise. I mean, Pete, like, this is exhausting. We had to deal with this before we had Deshaun Watson as quarterback. This adds a whole other layer of things just being very intense, very intense.
He's got to accept, and this is the thing I worried about, and I compared this to LeBron James when he went to Miami, and he sort of was like cool with being a villain for about 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden it wasn't very fun anymore, and he wanted to be again. Deshaun Watson has to accept the fact that a whole lot of people, the vast majority of people, and some people who root for his team, will never forgive or like him. They will tolerate him so far as he can win games. And what you saw last night was everything the detractors could have ever
exactly.
dreamed of.
Yes. You had people salivating at that performance.
Like Jason LaCamfora is a good example, and I really don't mean this to Chris. He was like chomping at the bit.
I think I muted him.
Seething with at how much he just despised Deshaun Watson. And like, what am I going to say to that? Like, am I going to argue with him? No, of course not. Like, he's on solid ground to not like him. But like, this is the thing. And the other part about this, and I always get that there are certainly people and Browns fans that have like taken up for Deshaun Watson's cause to the point of stupidity.
For sure.
And like, you know, I can think of one notable example in the media who's like playing the part of like fake lawyer on his legal team. But like, they're like, other than that, for the most part, people who like the Browns long before Deshaun Watson was here and just want to be able to enjoy their team. Like, Deshaun Watson does not define their fanhood. They grew up, you're a perfect example of this. You grew up with the Browns. Your family, like so many memories and you know, events and everything just happened to coincide with either going to Browns games or watching Browns games. Your kids are in this with you, as far as like, it's like within the fabric of your life in some ways. Like, you're not going to allow Deshaun Watson to take that away from you just because he is a bad guy, allegedly, but not really allegedly. And that's the part where it does become difficult, where you do get that pylon effect of people like, well, some of them were Browns fans before, or like, well, fans deserve this. Or
exactly.
Fans are saying fans deserve. It's like, I can speak to myself. I can speak for you on this. We're just examples. We adamantly argued against going down this path, but ultimately, like, we're here because we want the team to do well. Obviously, it's my job. Obviously, again, it's just part of your life. We didn't do it. We just really want it to work out because we don't have a choice. Like, it's either this or you know, nothing. So that part, it is frustrating. It's obviously not going to stop because, like, you know, this is the frustration with him being the face of the Browns franchise. This is what the result of that. And like, to have given up all these picks, to give it up $230 million, whether it's my money or Jimmy Haslam's or my draft picks or whoever, like, ultimately we have to eat it because we're the ones who have to sit there and watch it and you know, ingest it and all this stuff. And like, that's the point, is like, most of us were readily aware, and we're willing to acknowledge, yeah, we think he did some bad stuff. We're not, you know, we aren't happy about like how this is, but ultimately we just want to do the team to do well. For example, we want Nick Chubb to succeed. We want Myles Garrett to succeed.
There's so much. Like he is not the entire identity of the Cleveland Browns. He's obviously the most important position on the team. So that's where things get a little bit more complex. And there are a lot of guys that are fun to root for on this team. So yeah, like the whole psychology of what it's like being a Browns fan has always been really difficult in general. And then this decision to bring him here added just another layer of complexity that we have to grapple with day in and day out, week after week. And it's going to be even more apparent this season because there are so many people rooting against him, and in sense, like rooting against Browns fans that are just wanting to watch their football team and cheer. And might I add, it's very hypocritical, because had Deshaun went to another football team, the same thing would have happened. And there are bad guys that play on every NFL team. It just is what it is. Like, we've talked about this before. It's unfortunate. Deshaun Watson happened to be a really good football player, which allowed him the right to earn a living, even with allegations of doing very bad things. And so that's what we are living with right now. And I will say, Pete, like, I'm not rooting against him. I'm not rooting for him to fail. For me, what I would like to see from him, you know, he has a longtime girlfriend that has stuck by his side this entire time. He seems to have the support of his teammates in the locker room. And again, like, they didn't have a choice in this matter either. So they have to work with him, and even if their thoughts may differ. And obviously I'm not suggesting anyone feels that way, just saying that out loud. I would like him to just talk about, like, yeah, I know people don't like me. And that's fine. They don't have to like me. I understand that everybody's feelings are going to be different, and I have to accept that. And it's even more so like aggravated by his play on the field. So for him, having this play not be at the level that he expects himself to be, coupled with the fact that he's also an enemy in some fans' minds, that's a lot to deal with. Now, that's what he signed up for. You're making a lot of money to work through these things and to deal with it. And I'm not rooting for him to fail. In fact, like, I get it. He's allegedly done some bad things. I don't think everyone that does bad things don't deserve second chances, don't deserve a life, to be frank. So you have this chance. You've been paid this amount of money. Now it's up to you to figure out how to be the best version of yourself as a football player and as a human being. And I don't know. I don't know that we're going to see that. I don't know if that is who he is.
Yeah. I have zero faith that he's ready to have the conversation that you'd like him to have, which, you know, also makes me uninterested in hearing the Haslam talk about his personal growth. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, I'm done hearing from everyone else. Yes. You know, like, I'm at the point where, like, I don't need to hear it from everyone else. That's great that you feel that way, but until I hear it from him personally, like, that's what I'm most interested in. And like I said, just own it. Just own that you're the villain. That's what you are. Like, call it what it is.
As long as he's a villain who makes plays,
yeah,
you know, that's fine. But and that's ultimately where they're at. You know, whether it's Nick Chubb, Myles Garrett, you know, Joe Bitonio, they didn't choose this. This is just what they had, and I'd like those guys to succeed. I wish the best for them. So, you know, that's sort of where we're at. So, for now, he's got to play better. He's got to play better right now. He's got to get better for week 3. Got to rally and find a way to, you know, play well enough to get a win against the Tennessee Titans. The Browns aren't going to be able to replace Nick Chubb. Jerome Ford is their guy at this point. They'll sign somebody, but ultimately they're going to bet on the line and Jerome Ford's talent to make that work. Defense continue to be good, continue to be great. Special teams, great week 1, awful week 2. Well, I should say awful, but some awful moments mixed in there. Can they bounce back? There's a lot of the things that they did wrong in this game are certainly fixable, particularly in those areas. But it's all going to come down to the quarterback, and all we can waste all the time we want with energy and on we should fire the coach, this, that, and the other. If Deshaun Watson is as bad as he played against the Pittsburgh Steelers, Kevin Stefanski's job might be safer than ever because they're not going to be able to get somebody to come in and take the job next year with Deshaun Watson, unless it's, I assume at that point it'd be Eric Bieniemy at that, which would be a fascinating choice given his alleged issues with women. So that's where we're at.
Pete, I have one last final thought on him. I mean, he probably has the most difficult job in all of NFL, Deshaun, coming in not only with everything that had happened, but he chose a team that historically has struggled. He chose a struggling franchise. So you couple that with everything else. I mean, this could be a disaster, or it could be the greatest story ever written. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, look, on some level, if he is a disaster, you can say that the Browns deserve it for making the choice, and maybe they do. But for the time being, the Browns have to focus on getting better. They have to focus a way to right the ship, get better. But
Pete, even with the Browns, it's not like other teams weren't pursuing him.
No, I know. There were,
it's not like the Browns were the only people that took a flyer on this whole thing. Like, he was going to be an NFL quarterback in the NFL in total, and he chose the franchise that has the least stability that has ever existed and the least success.
Falcons, Saints were some of the teams. There were 13 in all that at least inquired.
Yeah. Just interesting marriage here.
So look, and you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers after week 1, their season was over. I'm still not convinced their season's in great shape, but they certainly feel better heading into week 3. The Cincinnati Bengals, just all is lost right now for the Bengals. Joe Burrow's hurt. Everything looks like a mess there. The NFL is a week-to-week league. If Deshaun Watson and the Browns come out and play well and beat the Tennessee Titans, you're not going to forget this game, but you're certainly going to be able to look past it and be like, okay, it was a game. It was a really bad game. They lost, but they're able to bounce back. And that's sort of the nature of the beast and sort of all you can really do. But either way, we're going to be here talking about this until Bree decides. Until
I resign. Last night I texted Pete. I don't know. What was the timestamp? Was it like 12:05?
It was late.
I've officially resigned from the podcast.
It's just like...
How many more times will I say that, Pete?
Oof, I hope not many, but if he plays like that, it'll be like a weekly thing of just
also just FYI, this is a bad job by me, but I didn't tell my mom that I still had a podcast, and she just discovered us like last week. And she said I played pickleball with her on Sunday, and just so everyone knows how that tournament ended. So my dad organized a Browns versus Steelers pickleball tournament at 1 p.m. on Sunday, since obviously they didn't play until last night. There were far more Browns players that entered than Steelers fans. So that was a bit of an issue because some Browns fans had to play on the Steelers team. Well, turns out the Steelers dominated. It was 145 in total points versus 79. So this felt like foreshadowing of what we were going to see on Monday. And I did not want to tweet about that because I did not want anyone to panic. But so my mom tells me at the pickleball matchup that she discovered our podcast and she just wants to let everyone know that her gambling habit is under control, but she does appreciate that we keep track of it.
Well, that's a shame. I have so many references that she may have missed of talking about her, but that's awesome.
And she also said that her idea for a DeJuan Jones jersey is for me to get in one arm, my sister to get in the middle, and my mom to get in the other arm. She thinks we can all fit, 3 of us.
I don't doubt it.
3 bodies, 1 jersey. So she appreciated that banter, Pete. So we have a new subscriber, my mother.
That's awesome. So yeah, look, and again, I'll be honest, after talking through this, I feel better now than I did before we started. So there's that. And that's the thing, like it's not fun to do this, like, and talk, shit on the football team and all this other stuff. But ultimately they will play again Sunday. They will have an opportunity to get back. And if they do, they're back to 2-1. And all of a sudden we're talking about division and everything else. It's going to be a long season, which we sort of knew was going to happen. It's going to be a bloodbath. They're going to have to earn it, especially now, if they want to have success. It's up to them to rally, make it work, and get ready to play football this week. In the meantime, we will be back next week, one way or the other. But you can all subscribe, like Bree's mom did. Comment, all those things. Reviews always help and support the show. We do appreciate all the comments we get. We do get some very supportive fans that look forward to hearing us, which is gratifying because obviously, when you do this, I certainly enjoy talking to Bree anyway, but it is sort of nice to always get that little reminder that yes, people are listening and enjoying what we're talking about, our perspective, or just sort of trying to be level-headed with everything and not just screaming for the sake of screaming and all that other stuff. So for those people out there who are doing those things, we certainly appreciate it. But we will be back next week, hopefully feeling better about this team than we were this week.